Those are the reasons that stop people.
Yeah.
Know anybody? I've never done that before. I always say you have to start bad. And so many of us can't start bad, Kiki.
Mhm.
Like everything that I started sucked in the beginning. My first talk, my first performance, my first, it's just everything.
Today, I'm joined by Dr. Shannon Whittington. Shannon's work centers on care, dignity, and inclusion. But what I appreciate most about her is that she doesn't speak about those things from theory alone. She understands what it means to navigate systems, identity, and moments where being seen or supported isn't guaranteed. She also has a podcast. We're going to share all of that. Shannon, I'm really glad that you're here.
Glad to be here too. Thanks for inviting me here.
So before we go into your work today, I want to start somewhere human. I want to talk about a point in your life where you realized that being seen or heard wasn't guaranteed.
Oh my gosh. It's so funny because I hid in the workplace
Mhm.
for so many years as a gay woman. And let me tell you something, that did not feel good.
Yeah.
And it just never came up. So it never came out. But then one day I'm at work and one of my friends who's gay says, "Oh, what are you and your wife doing this weekend?" In front of God and everybody right on the
Yeah.
floor. And I just melted. You could have heard a pin drop. I wanted to smack him, you know,
Yeah.
because I didn't think I was ready. I worked at that organization probably like 15 years and no one knew. And I just got outed like that. And nothing changed, but then everything changed.
Wow.
People didn't treat me any differently, but then people treated me differently. So it was a whole experience that I had to navigate on someone else deciding to out me.
That's fascinating. I mean, I think that today so many people are focused on the work of well-meaning work of being allies. They don't necessarily think about what it means for when somebody's ready or not ready to reveal personal details about themselves. So I can imagine that that would have been well, that would have been a sideways moment for sure. When it's like all of a sudden you're probably looking at every sort of expression, micro expression, reaction, and wondering, is this, am I reading into it? Is this because of this new information or is it something else? So thank you for sharing that example with me. I'm curious about that. I have so many follow-up questions. What really stands out to me about that is how sometimes some of those types of experiences can really shape how we move through the world, often without us even realizing it. And I imagine that from then on, that really shifted the way that you were moving in the world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I never thought that I would be like an LGBTQ expert, educator, doctorate prepared, nurse educator in this area, talking and speaking all over the country at all types of organizations and corporations. Like, I would have never had the nerve to do it, I don't think. And I think if this had happened when I was younger, I probably would have left the organization and went somewhere else and stayed in the closet. So I guess things happen as they should happen.
Hmm.
And that is definitely shaped, the trajectory of my career, unbeknownst to me at the time, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Well, it's like, I mean, isn't that life, right? It's that catalyst that sort of has to come in and say, yeah, we're gonna make life interesting for you here. You do work centered on, and if I say anything that doesn't ring true, like please correct me, but from what I understand about the work that you do work that's centered on care, dignity, and inclusion. And that kind of work often grows out of lived experience. You were just sharing a little bit about some of maybe what went into that, but when did that connection for what you do now really become clear to you? Because certainly there had to be like, it wasn't just like, oh, now everybody knows, and now I'm gonna shift everything in my life and change direction, and this is me today.
But you know what? You're absolutely right. Actually, another sideways moment, KiKi. I was a top performing manager at a company. I had a number one team in customer satisfaction, number one in many of the quality indicators, and started to become popular, right? And my boss wasn't very happy about that. I was often asked by other, you know, departments to contribute to this or serve on this committee, serve on that committee. I would get chosen for certain things. And the popularity somehow bothered my boss. And then when she found out I was gay, I was treated differently immediately. I went from being one of the most favorite managers to suddenly uh, a boss trying to sabotage my career. And so what was starting to happen was that every time we would switch locations or, move offices, she would always have me right outside her door. I don't care how many times we moved, she put me right outside her door. Now, probably to watch me, I would have a lot of visitors come. They wanted to talk to me, ask advice, because I was very helpful, empowering others. And it was a bad, but then it was a good thing because I've heard a lot in that office coming from her. And I heard how she could tell a nurse that was leaving, she gave her an excellent review, and I would hear on the phone just the opposite. And she used to always say, I've got very long arms. And so when I was no longer a yes person and really intent on doing this work and creating cultural change within a very old organization, well, she didn't like it. So she set out to sabotage me. And she was telling everybody not to hire me. I'm the most disorganized manager she ever had. So I tried to get out from under her thumb and apply for another position. I went and interviewed. The interview went absolutely fantastic. The guy was like, I think you're perfect. She sabotaged that because as soon as I came downstairs, she was like, who did you interview with? And I said, oh, I can't remember his name. And she was like, was it John? I'm using a fictitious name. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was it. And she was like, oh, and then she closed her door. And I knew what was happening in that moment. And I was like, I have got to shift because she's going to ruin me and I will not be able to get a job in New York because everywhere I go, everyone will know her. So I thought, what can I do that she can't put her arms in, that she can't have any little bit of salt in anything that I'm doing? I can become a speaker. So I went and became certified by the John Maxwell team. That was the route I felt like I needed to go. And I started developing my speaking skills. I started going to all different types of speaking programs, buying programs, and becoming an expert in my field. Went back for my master's and went back for my doctorate. And I was like, I am going to be the subject matter expert in the country. And I started speaking all over the country, unbeknownst to her. And what I had hoped for at my organization to have my own department centered around transgender care and transgender after gender affirmation surgery happened 30 days after she retired. So although it was horrible, I would probably tell her thank you today because of that, I do what I do. I've written books, I've gotten awards, I travel everywhere. And I don't think I would have done that if it hadn't been for her trying to sabotage me. So that was definitely a sideways moment, KiKi.
I would say so. You must have known and already been good at speaking to groups and knew that this was something that was in you to know that was the direction you were going to go in. Like, tell me a little bit about that. Was that something that was sort of lurking in your background that you were like doing these things and just kind of knew that you were good at speaking to people?
That's interesting that you asked that because what had happened was so I was developing training with our education department and they had presented the training. And then in practice, I realized that it really wasn't translating. So I came up with training myself. And one day I went up to the education department and presented this training to them. And they said, where have you been? This is yours. Take it. And so I became the educator around this and I held my first training. And that's the day I got bit by the speaking bug.
Yeah.
So, my mom says, it's about time somebody paying you for running your mouth like that. Because she's sure they run it a lot. I
I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean,
And it's a sensitive topic. And my girlfriend came up to me afterwards and she said, Shannon, you're talking about that stuff like, you're just talking about having bacon and eggs for breakfast. And that's just how free and easy it was for me. And it is for me to talk about things that are uncomfortable and maybe conflictual and not politically correct in whatever climate we're in, to still be able to present this information that says, hey, no matter what folks are saying, we ain't going nowhere as gay folks. And as my mom says, there don't seem to be no shortage of y'all.
I know, but you just keep being born. I don't know. Try history. So I want to go back and talk a little bit about some of maybe the questions that you had in your mind about changing direction and about shifting in your career. Because and even in how you just set your career trajectory or how you chose to think about yourself, because surely when you're going through changes that you didn't anticipate making, there are a number of different options that are in front of you. And so did you feel any doubt? Did you have questions about alternate routes that you might take? What was some of what were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind at the time?
I remember it like it was yesterday. This was right before COVID. I had been wanting to start my own consulting company. And my wife said to me, when are you going to do something? All you're doing is talking about it and you're not doing anything. And so I was out walking the dog and I was walking up the hill with the dog. And I was like, but how am I going to be able to start my own company when, I'm away from home 12 hours a day. I've got a 3-hour commute. By the time I get home, it's dark, it's late, I'm tired, I got to get up and do it all over again. And I don't see how I'm going to be able to do that. And the voice, God's voice, the universal voice, to me, God's voice said to me, just start, right? Just start. And so I did. I spent $1,200 and got, LLC and all that. And COVID happened. Well, there came my 3 hours back of commute that I could concentrate on doing my business. I could work on my business from 4 something in the morning until 8:30. That's 3.5, 4 hours. I get off at 4:30. I've got another 2 or 3 hours. And that's how I was able to do it. But, I think the best time to start something is when you don't have money, you don't have time, you don't know anybody, and you don't have the experience.
Wait, so why? And why is this the answer?
Those are the reasons that stop people.
Yeah.
Know anybody. I've never done that before. I always say you have to start bad. And so many of us can't start bad, KiKi. Like everything that I started sucked in the beginning. My first talk, my first performance, it's just everything. My first product, my first book looked like a cheap pamphlet, right? My first calendar looked like a third grader did it. And I was embarrassed. And my mom hung it up on her wall. She thought it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. Like they screwed it up royally. I screwed it up royally. The book, everything really was bad. I mean, it was like a lot of bad moments. Like my first pictures, bad. First website, first speaker sheet, really bad. First outreach to people, bad. And like not 21 outreach for listeners. I reached out to 21 conferences. I got rejected 21 times.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Talk about this.
I love that you can laugh about this, though. I think you're right. I think that I think they are so afraid of the rejection and feeling like that any rejection that they get, it means that they shouldn't be doing what they're doing, that's somehow a sign. See, I guess that wasn't for me. That's a sign that I shouldn't be doing it. And it's like, no, that's just the first start. Like you're learning, right? This is all learning. And so have you,
That is what it meant.
have you only did it not? Have you, not everybody reached that.
No, because I thought rejection meant I wasn't supposed to do it.
But you kept going. Why?
Well, I did a lot of other things before I did this that I failed miserably at. So why not try something else. I mean, I just feel like the failures or the no's, you kind of get those out of the way to get to the yeses. And like right now, honestly, I've been pursuing speaking for 5 years. I'm exhausted. You know, I'll tell your audience, I'm exhausted. I feel like I've tried everything to do this. And I was talking to my adopted mom, she's 87, and she said, and I was like, I'm tired. I did this, that didn't work. I did that, that didn't work, and I was slinging snot on the phone. And she said, Shannon, something will work as long as you continue to try. Ooh. And I was like, oh, she said, because that's the way it works, baby. She's like an opera singer. I'm all over the world. And I was like, well, you know what? Maybe I'll look at what I'm doing now as maybe this is the thing that's going to work. And then all the other things, well, they worked that because this one worked and I didn't quit. Have you seen that picture? There's an image of this guy underground digging, 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 digging. And he's like so close to the diamonds, he just can't see it. And he turns around and goes the other way. Like, when you reach like the most resistance, right? The most resistance, that's when you get ready to have the breakthrough. Wow. So I'm like, maybe feeling tired and exhausted is a great thing because, you can't experience joy if you haven't had sadness, right? So I just feel like it's going to work. Have your audience come back and talk to me in a year and I'll be like, see, give us an A. Yeah.
So, okay. So I love this because it's a great frame for the things that we're inevitably going to face in life, whether you're having some sort of a sideways moment or not, whether things have gone sideways or not, there's for sure going to be moments where you feel a sense of rejection or doubt about yourself in what you're doing. And so I love this reframe and thinking about it as, no, you're getting close to the diamonds when it gets hard. You're getting close to the diamonds. So, and I need to look up that image because I don't think that I've seen it, or at least I can't recall it right now. So I'm going to have to do some homework after this. How did that experience of going out on your own and trying these new things, how did it change the way you think about care and the way that you care for others, both how we offer it to others and how we offer it to ourselves?
Well, I never had any intention on this being my topic, of how I want to transform how care is delivered to the queer community. Like, I never intended that to be the case. Number one, it's not popular. Number two, I get a lot of cringe in my, comments on my social medias. I made I used to do this thing called an LGBT tip of the day.
Mhm.
Or just give a little, okay, this definition means that, reach out if you want to know more. And a person commented in my DM section. It was pretty clever. They said, here's a tip. Don't do it. Like, don't give the tips. Or how did this cringe end up in my feed?
Haters.
Yeah.
Gross.
Yeah. So that would tell me that, oh, you're on to something, right? You're really on to something. And it kind of happened like accidentally. I had been on LinkedIn for years, like 12 years. And I just started posting a little bit of videos on mostly John Maxwell stuff because, I love John Maxwell's DNA. And one day I just happened to mention something about LGBT. I don't know what I said. And the engagement was so much higher, And then I thought, why don't I be brave? Because at this time, no one was talking about LGBT on LinkedIn, And for your audience, it's like, I think over 700 million members on LinkedIn, and it's the most professional platform that exists. So it was a big, I would say, like a career risk, if you want to say. But I get all of my speaking gigs on LinkedIn. Like, I would say 99%. So, and then having experienced my own healthcare navigation as a patient, and seeing what's out there and having doctors ask me, am I pregnant? And I'm telling them I'm gay. Now I know gay women can get pregnant, but when's the last time you had sex with a man? Like questions like that. I was like, I really need to educate because we're not really taught this in nursing school and the other disciplines as well, therapist and dentist and all of that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I can imagine that. I mean, when you talk about it now, I think, well, naturally, this is how I know you. It is in this role. You're a subject matter expert in this area. I can't imagine that you thought at one point it was risky to do it because it seems like she's very clearly, you know, doing well at what she's doing and all of this stuff. You work with people who are often facing their own sideways moments that are also they're like something has happened that they didn't expect, that they maybe didn't want at that moment. If someone is listening right now and they're feeling exhausted, they're feeling invisible, they're feeling unsure about what comes next or what they should do, what is the truth that you would want them to hear?
Well, my adopted mom always says, get in a corner, get in a corner and be quiet. And, people, well, what do you mean by that? I had an experience where I produced a calendar, not the first one that was so bad, but the third one. And I, it was so bad. I mean, Nikki, I spent so much money on it. It got in late. They made a huge mistake on the back, and I was sitting here in my office with 500 calendars that were going nowhere.
Yeah.
Right. And I was so upset, so mad. I was mad at the designer. I was mad at the manufacturer. I was mad at the guy who promised it and didn't deliver. I was mad at myself for not starting earlier. I was mad at not proofing good enough. I was mad at all of that. Just woke up mad as a wet hornet, right? And so I said, all right, what am I going to do about this? And I said, I will lay in this moment
Hmm.
and be angry for a certain amount of time. I'm going to give it that.
Yeah.
Right. And then I gotta move on. So that's what I did. I laid in the bed for a certain amount of time and allowed myself to be super, super angry.
Mhm.
And I decided to move on. And what was my move on moment? I donated the calendars to gay organizations throughout the city. And, they loved it.
Yeah.
And I felt like I really made a difference, you know? And I tried to turn it into something good. So there's always something like that when something goes sideways that you have to, pick yourself up, allow yourself to wallow in it for a minute, but just pick yourself up and don't give it all of your energy because you'll never move forward. You could just have that, just laying heavy on you and having all this resentment. And every time I look at the calendar, I'm upset about all the money I spent and no one, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how I managed that. And that was a really hard, that was a really big failure for me this year. Probably one of my biggest failures.
Well, you know what? We should have a fail fest together, and we should just invite everybody to bring all their biggest failures and share them, and just like this is the thing that you want to see. Here is my great program that I created, soup to nuts, and guess how many people signed up for it? Like I remember back in COVID, during COVID, you know everybody was trying to figure out how to do better online and to look better online because at that time most people were not getting onto these video calls all the time, the video meetings, and then suddenly they had to, like everybody did. And
That's when
so
plastic surgery went up. Tenfold, right?
yeah, and so for me, all my speaking engagements I typically had went away because nobody was meeting in person, but there were more virtual events, and I ended up being invited to teach about how to show up on video because I did a lot of live streaming and people knew me for live streaming already. Like I was an early adopter for that and would do that a lot. So I actually did pretty well at being invited to teach on this. I thought if I did a course, and I've also put together like courses for other, organizations and companies and stuff. I thought if I put together like a workshop, a virtual workshop, and I sell it, then it would be really successful. But here's my shameful failure is that for all the marketing that I think I'm good for doing for other people, I hesitate to market my own stuff all the time because I don't want to seem like a car salesman. I don't want to seem like, it's like, oh, there's KiKi promoting more of her things again. And that was something that at that time I had never really promoted a course of my own that I was selling. And so I had a handful of people that signed up, but nowhere near the number that I thought that I would. I thought it'd be a landslide, it'd be all these people, small a number. And I had a handful, and some of whom like will still reference this workshop that I did. But I gotta tell you, I got shaken. And that was one of my failures. So I'm gonna keep that.
Failure, not a shameful failure, a
Yes.
shameless failure.
Shameless failure. But I learned to
Celebrate that enough. Like, listen, give me the kudos for freaking trying, okay? Like for having the nerve
Yes.
to try. Like so many
that.
people don't have the nerve, and then they get mad at you for having the nerve to try.
Right.
And I just want to look at them and go, look, don't be upset with me because I have the nerve to pursue my dream and you
Yeah.
don't.
I think more people, we have so many lurkers that are out there. I mean, I'm typically one person that just like observes a lot. And I think you have more people that are out there going, go, 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 than you do people that are the little snippy ones that show up in comments saying, here's an idea. Don't make any more of those. It's like, whatever.
I don't know.
But I like how you framed it earlier. And it's this idea of, if you're doing it right, you're going to have those. You're gonna rattle things around, rattle the cage, jingle the bells. So let's talk about what's emerging for you right now. I wanna think about moving forward because you're someone who seems to have a lot of ideas and thinking through ways that you can grow and improve and evolve. As you look ahead now, what feels like it's trying to evolve in your work, in your life that wouldn't have been possible without these sideways experiences?
I'm really grateful. I was just thinking about that this morning. Every morning I write down like my goals every single morning, and I also write down what I'm grateful for. And I'm super grateful, that I have a beautiful home, and I'm super grateful that I have a beautiful wife. I have two beautiful dogs. I have a wonderful job. I have a great consulting company. And I think one of the things that I'm going to be concentrating more on in the year coming up is, continuing my passive income earning, that's not dollars per hour. So that's in the crypto future space, which is going really well. And then as far as my career goes, like this past year, I hired a speaker, a coach, and I had to dip into my, retirement to pay this coach because that's how much she was. Okay. And so this year I was like, I'm still learning, I'm still growing. I'm going to hire an expert in this industry who has been there and done that. And we just had a meeting today, our second meeting today. So that's another investment in myself, right? For personal growth. And I think personal growth is intentional. Some of it is automatic, but most of it is intentional. And I am intentional on being the best I can possibly be in my industry, and also supporting other people to achieve their goals too, or to give them the courage to go back to school or start that business or start that side hustle. And not really putting all your eggs in one basket. You know how people get laid off at the end of the year. We're seeing that all over TikTok. People, so everyone can get bonuses, and all these people are getting laid off. So I never rest on my laurels. I'm always, trying to elevate, be better, do better. I've got a terminal degree, right? The highest degree you can get. but it doesn't mean that I'm stopping learning. Like there's certifications that I can do. There's additional trainings that I can do. So really invested in myself and personal growth and taking my speaking and consulting and writing to the next level.
Yay, I love that. Well, I mean, you mentioned something. I absolutely I love goals. I love goals. I love making goals. I love sort of envisioning what it is that I want to work on in my life. And as we're recording this, and when it's going to be released in late January, when we're recording this, it's leading into the end of December. And inevitably, there are the people, there's the camp of people who love this time of year for setting new goals for a new year. And then there are those who always like to, I think of them as buzzkills because they always like to tell me, like, you should be setting goals throughout the year. You should be there's nothing special about the end. I'm like, this is a very convenient mile marker. Like, come on, you stop it. I do set them throughout the year. And I love this whole like new year, new me kind of what do I want to do? And so with that, which camp do you fall in? Or if it's a different camp altogether, a different blend, then let me know. Are you pro end of year? Like I'm going to make some like, this is what I want 2026 to look like. Or are you of the whatever? I don't even bother with that. That's for people who, don't make goals for the rest of the year. And I think I know how you're going to answer that, but I don't know. And would you mind sharing what some of those goals are if you're already thinking about them?
No, well, I've been writing goals since I was in, I think the ninth grade, because I heard some study about, if you write things down, it makes them more likely to happen. And then, later there was a Harvard study that followed, I think it was like 100 Harvard graduates to check their progress. And it turned out that the graduates who had written down their goals were way more successful than the other graduates. And that just really stuck with me. So I've been writing down my goals every single day, at least 6 days a week. I do it first thing in the morning before I check my phone, before, pretty much before I get out of bed. And I write them all down and then I just say them kind of like under my breath to myself and run my finger along them very slowly. So they're just sinking in. And I look at that list before I go to bed at night, so kind of sink into the subconscious. And I make them outlandish, like they make you want to pee on yourself to write something like that.
I love that. Yeah. Yeah.
One of the big ones that I had written down was that I would move into a newly renovated house with these number of bedrooms, these number of bathrooms, all this stuff, corner lot, yard for my dogs to run in, an office with shelves for all of my awards, right? That was a biggie.
Yeah.
And little did I know, the 2 years that I was writing this down was the 2 years that the house I'm in right now was being renovated at that time.
My God.
Right? And I walk in here, it's everything that I asked for. There were really basically no concessions. They had a 2-car garage, where they had it, but we have a 1-car, right?
Yeah.
And then I come into the office, and the office is surrounded with the shelf all the way around. And I was like, oh my God. And it just felt so like that was such a big goal.
Yeah.
Such a big goal. And not to have a mortgage, right?
Yeah.
Like a huge goal, like unbelievable. And it feels like, oh my gosh, it seemed impossible at the time. And I don't have to write that down anymore.
Yeah.
It leaves 2 more lines for some other stuff that makes me want to pee on myself. Right?
Yeah. I really like all the things that make you want to pee on yourself. I'm all for that. And
your hand's shaking.
What's that?
Your hand will be shaking. You're like, what? That's really impossible.
Yeah,
No, write it down,
But it's like you put an order in and you got it. You put the order in, Do you do this with your wife? Do you guys sit down together? Or do you go over them together? Or is this just like it's a solitary, you focus on your stuff?
It's a solitary thing, but I did it to get her.
Oh, she was on the list at one point.
Yeah. All the attributes, 31 things. She was 33 things. She was 31. So I think that's pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Mhm. I
Man,
know, it's powerful. It's my girlfriend calls me a manifestation magnet. She's
you
like,
might
"You're a
think
manifestation magnet."
if you don't, do you have a workshop on that? Do you do any teaching on that?
No,
Yes.
I just love to like, I'm a Pisces, so we're really creative,
Yeah.
and I love to daydream. It drives my wife crazy, but I love to daydream, and, I love, Wayne Dwyer's book, like, A Wish is Fulfilled, which talks about how the important moments it is right before you go to sleep to, like, start playing the movie of what it is that you want, what it is that you wanna be. That's how I created my position at work. Every day I was walking to work, I was saying, "I do this full time because it's the only work that I do." Like, my coworkers, when they saw me on the street walking down 42nd Street, they thought I was crazy. I was creating my future,
Wow.
and that's exactly what happened,
Huh.
So I know I can manifest the perfect wife, the perfect house, the perfect pets, perfect work environment. I can manifest the speaking career that I desire to have, and the impact that I desire to have on people, and the legacy that I wanna leave. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
it's fun to imagine that you're already that and to feel that you're already that. Like, I wake up feeling like I'm getting ready to go on stage and make 100K for my 45-minute talk.
Yeah.
Like, why not? People are doing it,
Mhm.
you know?
It's not like
The
it's not
Rock's doing it.
That's right.
And what's any difference than her than me? Nothing.
I am so thankful that you said yes to coming on to the podcast and talking with me and sharing your story, sharing your sideways moments. They're not always the most fun, but I think that they're fun because I think that these are the moments when we can really learn the most. This is when the story gets really good. You don't know what that person's going to do next, but they make a move. And that move can make all of the difference.